The evolution of a worldview, how a lifetime of experiences led me to see personal productivity differently. As I wrote this next article a few weeks ago, it was Mother's Day in the US, and I had to admit, I miss my mom. She passed away in 2017 at age 78, but it seems like just yesterday that she was here. My parents played a huge part in how I became an efficiency and productivity consultant, and they were also my biggest fans. Sadly, my dad died in 1995 when I was only 27, long before Productive Day was even an idea. So he never really knew that I started my own business, and I miss him too. But it was more than parental upbringing that led me here. In addition to my innate tendencies and talents, I look back over a lifetime of one-of-a-kind experiences starting at a very early age that shaped my views and gave me a unique perspective and allowed me to see things differently when it comes to workday efficiency and productivity. These experiences gave me special insights into what's possible for efficiency and productivity, which helped me lay the foundation for the creation of a simple solution for you. And it's my mission to help make your workday work for you so it's easier, it's more efficient, and more rewarding. So here's how it all started once upon a time and how my life experiences led me to where I am today to see what others have missed. So let's start with the early signs. It all started with years of country living and two amazingly productive parents. These next photos are of where I grew up until I was 17. This was a property of about 30 acres in Baltimore County, north of Hunt Valley, Maryland. Now, I share this not to impress you, but rather to impress upon you that there was no shortage of things to do. We affectionately called it the farm, but we didn't really farm anything. We had a few horses, a donkey, I don't know, to keep the horses company, a goose, not sure about that one either, a flock of mallard ducks at one point, and a couple of dogs. We first had a collie, and then we had a couple of shelties. By the time I came along, my parents had renovated the old farmhouse, which was more than 100 years old, and had built an addition onto it. They were always building, adding on, demolishing, fixing, painting, refining, remodeling, refinishing, and renovating. And after about 10 years or so, the most of it was done, including the build of a new barn, building a new furniture making shop for my dad, because that was a hobby he really loved, grading and landscaping and new gardens, a new vegetable garden for my mom, because that was her passion. And from that point on, everything was either a refinement or maintenance. Doesn't sound like much, but trust me, there was still and always a ton of work to do. My parents could handle it though. They made a great team. And of course, my sister and I were the helpers. My parents were two of the most able, capable, and dependable people I have ever known. They were industrious, purpose-driven, efficient, effective, organized, and always on time. For them, productivity was a way of life. They exemplified how to get things done and empowered me to do anything I put my mind to. I really loved and now cherish the time I spent working alongside my parents, helping them to get things done and learning anything and everything that they had to teach me. I'm sure there were moments, however, when I would have preferred to play instead of helping out with chores like cutting grass and fixing fences and tending to the horses and shoveling gravel, believe it or not, baling hay, weeding and digging and painting rooms and vegetable gardening or chopping and stacking wood. And it's this last chore that was a very important job for our whole family. Even though we had a furnace in the home to heat the home, we had two wood stoves, one at either end of the house. One was in the living room, but the main one was in this big kitchen, this old family farm kitchen. And that's where we gathered all the time. My dad not only felled the trees, but he cut them up and hauled them back to the barn. And then we piled them up to get them ready for splitting. So this next picture is of me at age 16 on top of one of those piles. But that wasn't the only pile. No, no, no. The next photo is of my parents with my dad handling the logs while my mom pulled the lever on the hydraulic wood splitter that my dad had rented for the weekend. The splitter would come down to split the wood one way, and then they would do a cross cut the other way and create 4 pieces from every log. So as a family, we each had our tasks as a part of a very efficient process, and we had it down pat. We kept moving all day for 2 days, and outside of lunch and taking a couple of breaks, it was always a long but productive weekend. Here's the after photo once the first pile of logs was split. And again, this was not the only pile. By the end of the weekend, we had split and stacked about 8 cords of wood. I stood on the roof of our workshop, the wood shop that my dad used, that was attached to the barn to get this particular shot. I didn't know it at the time, but the habits and routines that my parents modeled became part of my DNA, staples in my life, and parts of my business. The wiring, however, was already there. My parents just reinforced it and then expanded on it. I liked being neat and organized. Shocking, I know. I enjoyed saving time and structure, so I made sure everything had a place. I learned that good habits are the foundation for a great life. I liked repeatable routines for keeping me on track and on time. And I learned a solid work ethic that has lasted me a lifetime. To sum up the early years, there are three things my parents modeled and taught really well. The first is planning and execution. My parents were masters at planning and execution, whether they were planning a weekend project, our next vacation, home improvements, of which there were a lot, or their next party. They made a plan, they planned their time well, and they executed efficiently and realistically and on time. They modeled finishing what you start. This is something they always did. They never left anything undone or half done. They regularly modeled what success looked like on the other side of effort. And I always enjoyed the feeling of success when I finished a project, which motivated me to keep finishing anything that I started. And the third one is celebrating a job well done. Every time we finished a project, my parents took the time to stand back and admire a job well done. They took pride in work that was done well, whether they did it or I did it or we did it together. They appreciated quality work and the effort that went into doing the job. And taking the time to do this built confidence and reinforced feelings of empowerment and accomplishment. What I learned early on is that how you think determines what you achieve. Now let's talk about when the patterns really started to emerge. I loved school. So let's get into the school years. I loved it a lot. I couldn't wait for the school year to start in the fall. I loved the new pencils and the pens and notebooks, and having a new book bag really got me all excited. Now my sense of order and process started to emerge during my school years, and my teachers noticed. Now I wouldn't have known this or remembered if my mom hadn't saved all of my report cards. I found them after she passed away, and I discovered similar comments from teachers year after year, starting at a very early age. Things like good progress, excellent progress, prompt and efficient. This next image shows the actual lines that repeatedly showed up on my report cards. Now, I liked saving time too, although one of my early experiments didn't quite turn out the way I had expected. I was about 11 or 12, which would have been about sixth grade, and I told my mom that I was going to go to bed in my uniform instead of wearing my pajamas so I could get more sleep in the morning. And she let me do it, which is hilarious, but she was fine with it because she knew how this would go. So I put on my white blouse and my green and white pinstripe jumper that night before going to bed. And as you can imagine, I woke up the next morning a wrinkled mess. And after waking 2 mornings like that, I called it quits. I had a standard of appearance that needed to be met, and that didn't cut it. So this little time-saving experiment was laid to rest immediately. Now, my school years also offered opportunities to help others, which started in the first grade, evidenced by the next image you'll see. And that was from my first grade report card. Now, this desire to help others continued through all the years at school. And at one point in my senior year, when I had finished a project a bit early, I was able to help a friend with an assignment, which I was happy to do. So whether helping my parents on the farm or classmates in school, I've always enjoyed the feeling of being helpful to others. And here's one final bit of evidence that who I am today is part of my DNA on a page in our senior yearbook where everyone in the class is acknowledged for what they are best known for. My classmates determined that mine was this next little gem that you'll see in this image that says, "That'll be the day when Leslie hands in anything late." So all in all, my school years quietly taught me to pay attention to details, to keep track of data, to ask questions, to understand my assignments, and adhere to deadlines. Not very different than what we have to do in our workday. So I became aware of my skills for staying organized and being efficient and meeting deadlines and staying on time. I was careful to use time wisely and be proactive, avoiding procrastination and always being prepared, especially for pop quizzes and tests and exams. This consistent state of preparedness served me well, though. I could always enjoy worry-free time when it was playtime, knowing that I had done my very best on my homework and my school projects. I liken this to eating your vegetables first, although I love vegetables too. So after graduating from high school and earning a Bachelor of Science in Business from college, it was time for full-time work. So let's get into what corporate life revealed. My dad worked at Black & Decker for more than 30 years. And as a child, I remember visiting his office and wanting to work in a corporate office just like his when I grew up. To get a good head start on my future career, I worked at Black & Decker and McCormick and Company during the summer and winter breaks throughout my college years. And in 1990, I entered the world of work full time. After scouring dozens of job openings in the Baltimore Sun way back when and doing lots of interviews, I landed my first job 2 weeks out of college. And I stayed in the same type of career for more than 13 years in 3 different companies. Now, my career was called a variety of different things depending on where I worked. In one place, it was material management. In another place, it was purchasing and supply chain. And in yet another, it was contracting. These logos below and the business card show where I spent the majority of my years in corporate. I loved my career. I became an Excel spreadsheet nerd, and I loved shopping for or sourcing anything that a person or a department really needed. I loved filling needs and solving problems and getting the best deal, the best value, and the best deal possible. In addition to being in operations in that side of the business, these jobs gave me an incredible view of how companies work, including the insights into every single role and department in a company. Because when you have to buy for them, you learn a lot. So along the way, I observed many changes in how work was managed and how personal productivity was impacted by trends and technology. For instance, in the 90s, the fax slowly was replaced by email. The number of phone calls started to decrease while the number of emails started to increase, and work started to speed up. And at that point, systems started to break down. And I was just as vulnerable back then to the issues and problems of a typical busy workday. During my 13 years, I got frustrated with the same things we get frustrated with today, just on a much smaller scale. For instance, I would have preferred to see all of my tasks in one place instead of on legal pads or Post-it notes. I used all sorts of planners and notebooks, like I used the Daytimer and the Franklin Covey planner. I used papers and files as reminders and put them on my desk as reminders of things to do. This just fragmented my focus since there were quite a few things to look at and to look for and to keep track of. I kept my email inbox low, yes, but the emails that were left there were reminders of things I needed to do, but I couldn't do right away. So time was wasted here repeatedly looking at the same emails day in and day out until they were actually done. I also got tired of spending time rifling through the file on my desk of things that I was waiting for from other people. I did this once a day so I could determine what actions to take or follow-ups to do. So personally, I wish I had back then the system I teach now, but it wasn't long before lightning struck, because then I connected the dots. I left my last job in 2003, and it was in those early years of running Productive Day when everything clicked. I started helping my clients get organized, but then I realized very quickly this was not their biggest problem. Yes, I could help someone find or file a paper or a file in 3 seconds or less, but if they couldn't keep up with email, or they couldn't get the time they needed to work on their most important projects and initiatives, or they couldn't get a grip on tasks and prioritize well, or if they couldn't find what they needed quickly and easily, they were never going to get the daily progress they were looking for. They were never going to reach their targets and goals when they wanted to. So I discovered that being organized was not the end goal at all. It wasn't the answer to their frustrations at all. Instead, as these gaps appeared, they highlighted what clients were really struggling with: a lack of reliable processes for getting things done. And at the time, most professionals thought they had just one problem, maybe just with managing tasks, or just with time, or just with email. But that wasn't it. It's never just one thing. Every process in the workday is connected. They support one another. They impact one another. They're intertwined. But the processes my clients were using were fragmented, broken, or missing. Clients were frustrated. They were angry. They were sad. They were aggravated and tired and stressed out. And that's when I discovered the missing piece. Because all of the complaints and the issues and frustrations, they were just symptoms of a much bigger problem. They didn't have a system for workload management. So the natural next step was to create one. And that's when the system was born: Taskology, the science of getting things done. It pulls together all 4 of the process pillars into one system, giving you a simplified, streamlined, and seamless way to manage your work. With a system, you immediately gain time and freedom, allowing you to make more progress at work so you can have more personal time at home to enjoy your life. And this journey has led me to you. Over the years, I've been grateful to work with clients from more than 30 different industries, and the insights I gain year after year continue to shape the system. Taskology has been revised 5 times in both the PDF and the video formats. And while the mainstay of Productive Day consists of both private consulting and team training, the video series has been brought back to the website along with a new Productive Day Powerhouse Inner Circle for support and coaching and accountability. Over the years, I've been saying and teaching the same things over and over again. What clients learned 15 years ago will still be relevant 15 years from now. And that's because Taskology is a methodology for your technology. It's a method of thinking and decision making and execution that will always be valuable and will not change. It'll stay effective because it's not hooked to the continuous evolution of technology. And what you may not realize is this: the methodology is more important than the technology. With my extensive experience and consistent maniacal focus on efficiency, I've learned to see through the trends that come and go, like open office spaces is a great example, and through all of the bright, shiny objects that appear weekly. I understand how the human brain works when it comes to doing the work that matters. I know what professionals need in order to keep their focus, hit their targets, and make an impact every single day. Everyone needs a reliable, repeatable set of processes that don't steal time, but return it instead to gain maximum benefit. And when you get this right, here's what's possible: more efficiency, effectiveness, and productivity, more time, energy, and freedom, increased clarity, confidence, and control, decreases in chaos and clutter and confusion, more meaningful, powerful progress, fewer worries about what you might have missed or lost or forgotten, more personal time for family, friends, hobbies, and health, less stress and more peace of mind. If you're looking for an easier yet more efficient workday, I can join you on this journey and guide you to your destination at the end of your particular rainbow. Now that you've read about the confluence of the mega trends that I wrote about in issue number 1 of the Efficiency Edge, and my nonconformist views about the solution for today's workload management crisis that I shared in issue number 2, you now have my backstory and the critical combination of experiences that have led me here to you. If you want a guide who will cut through the noise, simplify next steps, and lead you to and through the solution, I am here for you. If you're tired of guessing and you just want to know how to fire up your efficiency and power up your productivity and make amazing progress, reach out to me at leslie@productiveday.com and let me know the reason why you're ready to fix things in your workday once and for all. Are you most interested in more time with family and friends? Maybe more time for health, fitness, maybe sleep, maybe fewer worries and less stress? How about more progress at work with your team? More time for professional development and advancement? More time for sales, maybe connections, conversations, conversions with prospects and clients? Or maybe it's something else. Let me know. Drop me a comment or email me at leslie@productiveday.com, and feel free to choose as many as you like. Give me the whole list of why you really want to take control of your workday. I answer every comment, every email, and I would love to hear from you. Until next time, remember to make the most of your minutes, protect time for what matters, and make memories you'll cherish for years to come. Greater productivity doesn't mean packing more work into your workday. It's about getting work done from start to finish, faster and easier during your workday, so you can gain more time and freedom and enjoy more life. Until next time, this is Leslie Shreve signing off. Here's to your productivity and success.